2 months back, when East Timor's then Prime Minister Mari Alkatiri was dramatically forced to resign after weeks of violence and chaos, from many quarters there was an audible sigh of relief. Gone was the man variously described as undemocratic, alleged to have armed a hit squad to eliminate his political opponents, and a crypto-bloody Marxist to boot. Alkatiri, of course, maintains he was the victim of a concerted effort to oust him. Meanwhile, Australia has spent millions of dollars supporting the idea of constitutional democracy in East Timor and has hundreds of troops there maintaining the fragile peace. But post the violence, there are key strategic and security issues at stake for both countries. Indeed, as we'll see in a moment, new information is coming to light that demands scrutiny. We sent David O'Shea and John Martinkus, 2 Dateline reporters with a long history of covering East Timor, back to the troubled fledgling nation to our near north.
Although he's putting on a brave face, 2006 will go down as a bad year for Rogerio Lobato. Even the cake maker got his birthday wrong.
Aniversário 25 de 7 2116.
Following the violence in May, the former Interior Minister resigned. Tainted by allegations he'd armed a hit squad, and under intense pressure, Prime Minister Mari Alkatiri was forced to resign 1 month later. According to Rogerio Lobato, a great injustice has occurred.
Primeiro-ministro democraticamente eleito, que foi vergonhosamente derrubado por causa de filme.
The film Lobato refers to is the ABC Four Corners program broadcast in June, containing the damning hit squad allegations. Lobato has been charged, but despite the very public crucifixion of Alkatiri, there have never been any charges laid against him.
I'm fully confident because, as I said, I'm fully aware that I have nothing to do with this kind of things.
On the 23rd of May, Major Alfredo Renato fired the first shots of this crisis. He was Australian Army trained and was leading a group of rebel soldiers who had split from the army, and along with some policemen were now firing on their former colleagues. You shot one?
I think so. It's not moving anymore.
Renato insisted that he'd fired in self-defense, but I was there and I clearly saw and heard him shoot first. The soldiers who were fired on that day said the attack against them came out of the blue.
Depois tuiri dane to nomor hira masalate. Depois dane kila kumas kila taruh turarab. Haune kata ni ne itene malu. Mai ben sama tiruam depois ambil ne tirona am depois aku masan dua kumanan segurança. How responde?
Curiously, just days before, politician Leandro Isaac, a staunch opponent of Prime Minister Alkatiri, told me that something big was about to happen. I didn't realize how big it was going to get. So why did Major Renato attack? The former Prime Minister insists that what happened here at Fatuahi was the launch of a premeditated campaign to oust him.
I think Alfredo Renato was instructed to come down to Fatuahi and to restart everything with violence. This is the only way they got to provoke everything, to restart violence and to justify everything.
This was the beginning of 4 days of chaos in the capital Dili before the arrival of Australian forces. As a witness to that upheaval, I've come back with colleague John Martinkus, who has covered East Timor for 10 years. Following Renato's opening volley, the second major attack of the crisis was led by a man called Ray Loss. He told Four Corners that he was the leader of the so-called hit squad and was supposed to be killing people on behalf of Alkatiri. Well, how then does he explain this amateur footage? The man that filmed it told Dateline these are Railos's men and they're fighting alongside the forces they're meant to be killing. They're all fighting the National Army and by extension the government of Mari Alkatiri. But Railos is adamant he didn't join the forces rebelling against Alkatiri.
Bukan gabung. Waktu itu saya di sana untuk menghentikan mereka. Jadi saya berikan pengarahan pada mereka. Waktu itu diperintah untuk menghentikan dengan cara kekerasan. Tapi saya masih memakai akal saya untuk menghentikan dengan cara berbicara, berdialog dengan mereka.
You'd have to say that taking up arms and firing at the army is an unusual method of dialogue. East Timor's Prosecutor General is still investigating the incident and confirms Railos's role in the fighting in Tasitolu on the outskirts of Dili.
So it was confirmed the Railos men were involved in the fighting in Tasitolu. They led the attack and they began the shooting.
Thank you very much.
Just as Alfredo Renato had started the battle and then withdrawn, so did Railos. All that's left today of this crucial event in May is a pile of empty cartridge shells. Railos's claims about his role in the attack raise serious questions about his credibility and his damning allegations against Alkatiri. Over the days that followed, it seemed everyone had a gun, and many of them were handed out by this man, Police Commissioner and Alkatiri critic Paulo Martins. The Commissioner admits to emptying the police armoury and distributing all of the weapons, just before all the violence began. A fact confirmed by former Prime Minister Mari Alkatiri.
Police Commander Paulo Martins said me immediately that the weapons were not already on the storage, and they were really allocated to different police units by saying that one of the units was Aileu and the other one in Dili, but in Likisa.
By coincidence or otherwise, the anti-Alkatiri forces were concentrated in precisely the areas named by Alkatiri.
Itu senjata itu yang ditransfer ke Aileu di mana sekarang?
Senjata yang transfer di Aileu itu sekarang sudah ada di Aileu.
Di mana?
Di URP.
It's common knowledge that members of the police reserve unit had joined the rebels, along with many civilians.
Kenyataannya sampai sekarang siapapun tidak bisa membuktikan bahwa senjata polisi ada di tangan orang sipil.
If that's the case, how did this police weapon end up in the hands of Leandro Isaac? He's a member of East Timor's parliament, and he's carrying a police-issue Steyr rifle.
Karena Timor-Leste, khususnya kota Dili, sudah berada dalam keadaan perang. Dan ada kata ada nuklir pun saya gunakan nuklir.
Mungkin ada yang datang ke sini bertanya-tanya kenapa Deputado Parlemen mau memakai senjata.
Saya lain memakai dan memiliki. Lain.
Sekarang senjata itu?
Sudah ada pemiliknya dan bukan saya pemiliknya.
Pemiliknya siapa?
Polisi yang ada di sini waktu itu.
The most horrific incident of the 4 days was the massacre of unarmed police on the 25th of May. It was carnage. 9 police were shot dead and 27 were wounded. All of this done by 3 soldiers, so the story goes. The UN is investigating the incident. We can offer a dramatically different scenario. This footage suggests there were many more than 3 soldiers firing. One eyewitness we spoke to claims he saw civilians shooting at the police from these palm trees. And this group of armed men, some of them in civilian clothes, were among many unidentified gunmen at the scene. Who were they, And does the presence of groups like this cast doubt on the accepted version of events? Dateline was told the UN has video evidence supporting the version we have offered. Was this deadly confrontation part of a pattern to discredit the army and further undermine the Prime Minister?
Yes, let's go.
With security spiralling out of control in East Timor, Australian troops arrived to more damaging allegations against Alkatiri, which were big news in Australia.
East Timor's Prime Minister Mari Alkatiri has today dismissed a string of serious allegations and repeated his claim that a coup is being attempted to force him from power.
Forces loyal to Mr Alkatiri have also been accused of massacring 60 unarmed protesters and dumping their bodies in a mass grave. Mr Alkatiri also stands accused of trying to kill opposition leader Fernando de Araujo.
It's just completely false. I think that this kind of allegation or accusation is part of the whole plan, trying to demonize me. But nothing is true. It's completely false.
True or false, Australia apparently took the threat against opposition leader Fernando Araujo very seriously. They flew his wife and son to Darwin on 2 Black Hawk helicopters from this isolated airport in the southwest of the country. She arrived just in time to make the Australian news bulletins.
Like in Australia, where you can speak and you can debate, and the ruling party doesn't burn down your house and threaten to kill you.
It's worth noting that neither the death threats nor the allegations of mass graves have ever been proved. While Australia protected Araujo's family, many East Timorese say his Democratic Party, or PD, is actually responsible for coordinating the anti-Alkatiri mobs.
But you provide the trucks to drive them into town.
Pardon?
I mean, PD is involved in organising the transport to bring these people in.
So I think this is for demonstration. This is a people right, but when he burn house, this is a crime. Should be arrested and bring to. It's not my responsibility.
And Araujo had plenty of help stirring up anti-Alkatiri sentiment. Take, for instance, Rui Lopez, a man made wealthy through his close connections with Kopassus, the notorious Indonesian Special Forces.
Nós estamos aqui prontos para morrer, prontos para defender e prontos para matar.
When Dateline went looking for Rui Lopez, we found he had crossed the border into Indonesia.
It's a shame Rui Lopez wasn't at home. Basically, he's had lots of meetings with those people. He, as far as we know, provides money and logistic support to the PD party. And what we wanted to ask him was where the money was coming from.
I say I never get any money from Rui Lopez. Actually, we have the same view that Mari is threatening this country, but we all together. We organized that demonstration together.
Another of Araujo's associates and supporters is Nemesio de Carvalho. He's a former leader of one of the most bloodthirsty militia that terrorized Timor during 1999. De Carvalho is under house arrest for his militia activities.
So, Rui Lopez, I, and other people, and according to me now, most Timor-Leste is against Fratellin, are against Fratellin. Because Fratellin and democratic.
Another influential player in this drama is the Catholic Church. The Church was openly opposed to Alkatiri and his government, as this April 2005 letter shows.
The citizens of this country don't identify with the model that this government wants to impose on Timorese society. It's completely alien and cut off from the roots of our cultural, social and historic realities.
Both of East Timor's bishops signed and sent it to the President of Parliament, asking that
they decide on the immediate removal of the current Prime Minister, Dr. Alkatiri, and his government, and the appointment of a new Prime Minister who would immediately form a government.
The letter was ignored. But the Church have apparently been involved in more than letter writing. Reliable sources in the Army High Command told Dateline that 2 priests personally urged them to oust Alkatiri. Father Apolinario was one of them.
Is that correct? Is that true?
No, I can't say anything.
No, but is it true you went to visit to talk or not?
Bishop Ricardo da Silva, a co-signatory of the letter, also wasn't too keen to discuss the Church's alleged approaches to the army, or FFDTL.
Not true. People don't understand everything. Not true.
No?
Not bad.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Bishop.
Take care and see you sometime.
And you, thank you.
It means that what they couldn't do at that time, they decided to plan it better and to do it in a different way. I don't think that we can really blame the church as an institution.
And there was more. According to top-level army sources, in late 2005, Armed Forces Chief Brigadier General Taur Matanruak and Lieutenant Colonel Falur Rateleik were approached by 2 Timorese leaders accompanied by 2 foreigners. On 2 separate occasions, the 4 also asked the army, or FFDTL, to remove Prime Minister Alkatiri. Again, the FFDTL refused.
I was aware, I was informed by some commanders of the FFDTL on the situation that they were approached by some Timorese and some foreign nationals. But I was fully aware and confident on the command of the army. That's why I think that it was not an issue that could worry me. And for me it was nothing.
The 2 foreign nationals who were involved in approaching the military here to convince them to mount a coup against you, were they Australian?
Even the commander, they were not clear on this, if they were Australian or American, but it's between these 2. But I still have no clear information from the command that they were Australian or American. But surely they were English-speaking.
So who would want to mount a coup in East Timor, and why? Murray Alkatiri says it's simply because he was too independent and threatened Australian interests in the oil and gas fields of the Timor Sea.
What I've been doing during my terms is to defend the interests of my people on having the resources to develop this country independently, not to be dependent. This is the only things, and I was fully aware that we had our right, we still have our right on the Timor Sea, and we need to defend it. Not because I'm anti-Australian. I like very much Australia as a country, as a nation, as a people, and I will never be anti-Australia.
Do you have any evidence that Australia was at some level involved in the effort to seek your resignation?
Evidence, no, but the only Prime Minister in the world that was really advising me, quote-unquote, to step down was the Prime Minister of Australia during these difficult days.
Lenny, how are you? How are you?
John Howard, on the other hand, is far more disposed to Alkatiri's replacement as Prime Minister, José Ramos Horta.
This new agreement brings with enormous potential and opportunity for Timor-Leste and Australia. Thank you for your attention. Obrigado, Baré.
Just days after being sworn in, new PM Ramos Horta presided over the historic signing of the first oil production sharing contract between the two countries.
Thank you, and may God bless you all. Thank you.
When you deal with oil and gas and economics, well, you have to be fair and realistic, pragmatic. You know, Australia cannot be always philanthropic in everything it does conduct with East Timor.
I asked Ramos Horta's energy minister, José Teixeira, whether he thought that East Timor was getting a fair deal in the lucrative oil and gas agreements.
It's not the ideal outcome, but it's the pragmatic outcome. It's the creative solution to give us an outcome.
It seems pragmatism has won the day, but the former Prime Minister says he wanted to ensure East Timor had greater control over its natural resources, particularly the Greater Sunrise oil and gas field.
What I've been doing up to now is really try to get some independent study of the feasibility, independent feasibility study of getting the pipeline to Timor-Leste and the LNG plant to Timor-Leste. And this is very important because what Australia is trying to achieve is to have again Sunrise to be sent to Darling. It's not about it's Australian interest, but my interest can't be always coincident with Australian interest, and vice versa. This is the reality.
In the midst of the crisis, today there's a media event being staged at President Shahana Goswami's house. He's taking local journalists on a tour of his much-loved garden.
So gardening is one way you can forget the troubles.
Yeah.
Shahana Goswami is the man who holds the greatest moral influence in East Timor and is often portrayed as staying above the political fray. But this murky affair, with its many unanswered questions, has seen him at the very centre of events. In March this year, in a nationally televised address, he responded to the recent split in the country's army, speaking out about discrimination against recruits from the west of the country. Whatever the president's intentions, his words had immediate effect. That very night, the first Easterners' homes were burned down, and the first refugees fled their homes. Many felt that the president had taken sides with East Timorese from the west of the country, who are mostly anti-Alkatiri. And again today, he's very proactive. On his front doorstep, literally, 2 guns and a man who said he got them off the former Interior Minister. This media event draws an intriguing cast of characters, including Renato, whose hit squad allegations brought down the Prime Minister. Renato is warmly received by the President. But as we pointed out earlier, Renato attacked the National Army, which under the Constitution is headed by President Goswami. Kirsty Sword Goswami is East Timor's Australian-born First Lady. In May, she was quoted in the Australian newspaper saying that Alkatiri should resign. Many here regarded her comments as symbolic of Australian meddling.
There was some rather mischievous misquoting that was done by the Australian newspaper. I actually didn't call for Maria's resignation. I commented on the fact that there were increasingly forceful demands for him to resign, but I didn't express any personal opinion on, on that issue. But that's the way it was reported,
and it's been picked up here as a sort of a meddling in an Australian intervention or meddling in the internal affairs of East Timor.
Yeah. No, it was a misquote.
Some people are suggesting that what happened was Australia's first coup. What do you say to that?
No, I already told people that we are aware of our mistakes. Mm-hmm. We are very aware of our doings, wrongdoings, and the good things. We are well aware of this.
So the coup is just okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Dateline made multiple requests for an extended interview with President Gusmao, but he declined.
He's the boss in the struggle. And now he get nothing. This symbolic role, according to our constitution.
Whatever his motivations, Nemesio de Carvalho, the former militiaman, is prepared to say what many East Timorese now believe but are afraid to spell out. That the president and or others wanted Alkatiri removed, and the only way to achieve it was through drastic means.
There must be crisis, instability, including war, so he can play in such a situation. Without conflict, without instability, without anarchy, war, maybe he will never get more power.
There's also a lot of people, much of it in whispers, saying that the president is behind all of this stuff.
There's bound to be comments like that made. I can say with absolute confidence, as an insider, as someone who's accompanied very closely this whole situation, that it's nothing but a load of codswallop.
Meanwhile, 150,000 East Timorese sit in refugee camps, waiting for their leaders to sort out the mess.